Nobody wants politics in video games, at least the propaganda kind. But people apparently do want politics in gamers themselves, because I just stumbled upon a 2015 study that found that almost 80% of gamers are politically inclined, at least to the level it takes to vote in an election. Although I still don't vote, but I'm much more political than I used to be, as you're no doubt aware if you've watched a stream of consciousness recently. But this video isn't about arguing any particular side, just exploring some stats and what they mean for us as a community. Although I always use the term community very loosely. We're just all individuals who have an easier time finding common ground with each other than people who don't share our interests, lifestyle, or background. That's what all communities are, really. Just a collective familiarity that starts two people off at a higher base comfort level. If you're at a con and you meet someone else at a con, there are less conversational roadblocks standing in your way. You don't have to mind sweep so much. Could just dive right into whatever you want to talk about. That's the appeal of a community, and it's why people grow so attached to them as representations of their identity. It's a beacon for like-minded people to converge and share common experiences. But the like-mindedness of those people stops at the community moniker, because gamers, like everyone, are obviously very different in other aspects. The study found that 48% of the over 4,000 gamers surveyed identified themselves as political conservatives, while 38% identified as liberals. The remaining 24% went with independent, which, first of all, wow, I expected way more liberals. It was an online thing, so people could have lived in either red or blue states. There's just been a pretty big liberal push in gaming recently when it comes to diversity and representation, so I thought there were way more of them. Although I guess if there's one thing the left is good at, it's catering to minorities. Damn. I think this study needs to be redone nationally today, with big turnouts. 4,000 is a more than adequate sample size for statistical probability, but I'd want it to get attention and have the findings actually make people think about shit. I guess 38% of gamers are gonna get The Last of Us Part 2 then. Honestly, if you don't support the first lesbian kiss in video games, you're a bigot and you probably want all lesbians to die. Actually, the presumably first lesbian kiss was in Spider-Man the movie The Game, via a cheat code that gave you a Mary Jane costume that was consistent in cutscenes. So when you reach the scene where Spider-Man kisses Mary Jane, it's Mary Jane kissing Mary Jane, some hot girl twin polygon action in an E-rated game. The code was removed in later versions, but fun while it lasted. The Last of Us Part 2 does mark the first on-purpose Leslie lip action in a major title, though, I think, other than the DLC for the first Last of Us. Naughty Dog just keeps being a naughty dog. It was a prominent event at E3, which I already detailed in my Sony E3 analysis video, but if you missed that, there were two reasons I didn't like it. One was because the girl Ellie kissed is a dead ringer for one of my ex-girlfriends, and two, that girl was literally saying 10 seconds before that she hadn't showered in a while. #gross. As to whether or not it was a conscious publicity stunt from Naughty Dog to get people talking about their game, of course it was. Not that it needs it. The Last of Us was the God of War of the last generation in terms of critical acclaim, with a tiny minority of outspoken naysayers. Its sequel has an 8 pedigree and will sell millions of copies outright, including one to me because I liked the first one. A 48% conservative base for gamers also surprises me. There was no alt-right category, so I'm sure they've been tallied into the conservative pool, just like the Antifa types all funneled themselves into the liberal percentage. Of course, both those groups are a tiny minority and wouldn't affect the stats much. So before anyone says, of course there's more conservatives, #Gamergate, shut up. That wasn't conservatives any more than it's ever liberals passing out weapons at counter-protests. Always separate the fringe groups. That said, hardcore feminist perspectives on video games are always worth an eye roll and a retweet with a joke, but eye rolls and joke retweets are as extreme as Gamergate should have gotten. I saw an article headline a couple weeks ago that read, "We need to talk about all the sexist bullcrap in Octopath Traveler." Nah, we don't. Sounds like a column Jessica Price would write. Remember I talked about her a few episodes ago? She got fired from Guild Wars 2 for freaking out on a dude who offered her a perspective and turned out to be a community leader for her game. Has she been hired anywhere else yet? Hope not. To her, mansplaining is the scientific term for when a guy tries to have a conversation with you. It's important to note that her type of feminism is the minority of feminism, and also feminism in general is the minority of women in the country. About 18% of women in the US consider themselves strong feminists, in a survey that also included feminist as a choice. And strong feminists would be the ones who believe in equality of outcome, meaning if there's a boardroom full of executives, half of them better be women, regardless of if more men have better individual qualifications, and they're the ones who say everything is sexist and teach their daughters that they are oppressed from birth like lunatics. 18% is unpopular, deeply. It's 7% in the UK because British people are hopelessly intelligent. And that's not even 18% of the entire US population, it's 18% of the female US population, as in the ones way more likely to be feminists. Which, by the way, regular feminism, or the idea that women should have equality of opportunity, is just common sense and really shouldn't be considered feminism as much as just an extension of basic human rights. Everyone believes in equality of opportunity, which by that definition makes everyone a feminist, aside from the meninists out there and whoever really doesn't see women as equals, which is an exponentially smaller number of people than those whose ideology is based on being oppressed would have you believe. I mean, if you're being oppressed by a minuscule number of men in very singular situations, your movement doesn't have much of a point to it other than publicly shaming outliers. But if the entire gender is oppressing you and they can't even control how they're doing it somehow because it's conveniently ingrained in their subconscious, well, now that's a problem worth solving. Form up, ladies. We've got a clueless patriarchy to bring down. I couldn't find a stat for how many gamers identified as feminists, which is very disappointing that this information isn't readily available. Women in gaming is on the rise, though some stats are misleading. A popular one is that gamers are 48% women and 52% men, but that's complete bullshit. That stat refers to the amount of women and men that have reported ever having played a video game even once in their entire life. Hardly gamers. The real stat to look at if you want numbers of actual dedication is that 7% of women identify as gamers, while 15% of men do. And when you input those percentages into the total population of both men and women, taking into account that there are about 4 million more women than men in the country, you get 11.5 million female gamers versus 24 million male gamers. Twice as many dudes, which makes girls less than a third of the gamer population in the United States. That's a big gap. I'm not trying to prove anything with that, but it's important we operate on real numbers. Also, when people say girl gamers are everywhere, you can refer to this stat and say not even close to as many as you think, or they're all hiding. My high school had like 5 of them out of 1,800 students. Video games are still a bit of a gendered pastime, especially when viewed through the lens of the last generation of people, but obviously they shouldn't be, and they're fun for everyone. The amount of people who make fun of you for playing video games has dramatically reduced itself as time has gone by, and in fact with the rise of Fortnite, it's kind of gone the other way. Fortnite is a status symbol now among kids and teenagers in school. If you're good at Fortnite, you're popular. It seriously works that way now, and every kind of person plays Fortnite. The mean bullying jocks of the school play Fortnite, and the meek bullied dweebs play Fortnite, and all of them view skill as credibility in their group. They'll make fun of you if you're not good at it. You'll be mistreated and bullied if you're not good enough, to the point where there are now literal Fortnite tutors who get paid by these kids' parents to increase their skill and earn them respect from their peers. Really, there was an article on it. It's a great way to exploit bullied children for money, gotta say. I think the absolute figure was $20 an hour. I mean, shit, I'm in the wrong business. For the record, I am an average Fortnite player in terms of skill. I don't play it much anymore, but I used to a lot. Just like everyone. Fortnite is toxic in schools. If you're older and you just play it for fun, it doesn't matter. But there are actual stakes in specifically elementary and middle school when you live in a constant competition with not just your friends but your enemies too, during an extremely developmental period of your life where you face this added bombardment of constant stress. Fortnite is akin to grades. It's always in the back of your mind, and your success or failure is going to determine who you are for the rest of your life. If you don't understand that, you don't remember what it was like to be a kid, or maybe you've just been dead inside your whole life, in which case, congratulations, you turned out great. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.